Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is Shadow at Night for Wednesday, August the 27th, 2025. And on the show tonight, we're going to delve into a topic that I haven't spent too much time talking about over the past few years, simply because we talked about it just a little bit here and there, but we've never really gone deep into it, and we will tonight. The subject is Maid, medical assistance in dying, and how many Canadians have succumbed to Maid. As a matter of fact, it's one of the leading causes of death in this country. And the reason we're talking about Maid tonight is because our guest is the executive director of the Delta Hospice Society. Her name is Angelina Ireland. And a few years ago, when the Delta Hospice Society, this is a very simplified explanation of the story. You're going to hear more about it tonight. A few years ago, when the Delta Hospice Society said, no, we're not going to offer Maid to our clients, to our people, the government pulled their funding, the funding that they had secured from the Fraser Health Authority in British Columbia, to the tune of something like $1.7 million per year. And since then, and we're talking about a society, a group that has fundraised to build buildings, to buy land, or at least to lease land and build buildings and help people. And because of their refusal to offer Maid at their facility, they've been denied government funding. What is going on here? So Angelina is going to join the show in just a couple of minutes. Hellos tonight. Sherry is watching in Winnipeg on X tonight. Hello, Tony in Calgary. You're also on X. Hello, Michael, watching in Brampton. Jonathan is watching in Newcomerstown, Ohio on YouTube. Hello, Wayne and Patty in Norwich, Ontario on X. Mary is watching on Facebook in Vauxhall. Robin, hello in Muskoka. Iris is watching in Morden. Hello, Wilson. Carla, Barb. Bev is watching at Fort Mac. Lucette, hello, watching in Saint Jean Baptiste. Edith is watching in Winnipeg on YouTube. Hello, Deborah on Twitch. Not even Shauna Vision is watching on Twitch tonight. What the heck's going on? Deborah goes over to Twitch to keep Shauna Vision company because he's the only one who ever watches on Twitch, and then Shauna Vision doesn't show up. Of all the nerve. Gloria is watching tonight on Facebook. Hello, Betty, watching on YouTube in Niagara. Victoria is watching in the Carmen area, Facebook. Barb is watching from Lake Cowichan on Facebook. Whatever platform you happen to be watching on, guys. And don't forget Rumble. I'm not forgetting Rumble. Hello, Spack, watching from the Narrows, Notable, Bulch, Dog Lips, Criviere, Esky Dogs, Roger 44, Fives, Lee is... I love the Rumble handles. Arnie7 is watching tonight. Is that Lone Arnie? Is that the one and the same? Anyway, welcome to the show, you guys. Don't forget to like and share. Get this out to as many people as you possibly can. And tonight, we're going to talk CERN and portals to other dimensions. I know it sounds wackadoo, and that's why I'm reserving it for the extension tonight for all access Nighthawks on shadowdavis.com. We're coming right back with Angelina, Ireland, after this. Hello, Angelina. Thank you for joining the show tonight.
Hello there. Thank you for having me, Shadow.
You know, I first heard about your situation, I'm going to say it was about a month and a half ago. I was watching a podcast that I normally follow, pretty big podcast too, and I thought, oh, wow, this story has made it right out there into the mainstream, our mainstream, not the left-wing corporate media mainstream. So congratulations on doing that great job and getting the word out through your media people, I suppose, or maybe you do that. I don't know, but that's you. The word is spreading, and I think it's great that more and more people are hearing about your situation, even outside of BC, because it wouldn't surprise me if we start hearing more and more about this kind of thing in other provinces as well. Angelina is the executive director of the Delta Hospice Society, but you didn't start out like that with this organization. You actually came to them, and they've been around for 34 years now, I understand.
Yes.
You came to them as a patient. Can you go ahead and talk about your relationship and how you began your relationship with the hospice?
Yeah, so I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm just a patient. I came to Delta Hospice Society as a cancer patient, walking through that cancer journey. And thanks be to God and some good doctors, I returned to good health. And Delta Hospice Society was very important to me during that time with their programming that they had. And when I got to good health, I decided to try to give back, and I joined the board of directors. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into, so I went there 10 years ago, and I still haven't left yet.
It must be a great group of people that you work with, and I know that it changes probably every year when people step down and other people come onto the board. But what kind of experience has that been? And, my understanding of hospice care is that this is end-of-life care. So you must have been pretty sick with cancer when you came to them, yeah?
Well, look, so palliative care, so we're a palliative care organization.
Yeah.
And palliative care is really from diagnosis to natural end. So they like to sort of pigeonhole it as your end of life. That's it. But actually, it's far broader than that. And so I joined, when I came to the organization, I took part in the programming they had, the counseling, the different therapies they had for people. I was going through chemo and radiation, I sort of got the full meal deal with mine, the surgery, couple surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, a year of an adjuvant kind of therapy, and then about 6 years of just everyday medication, right?
Right.
And so, I've been good. Like I say, thanks be to God.
I find it amazing that I've got my own opinions about not necessarily cancer, because it's not like I don't believe in that disease. I know that it exists in many different forms, but it seems like the cancer industry is a whole other thing. We've had doctors who have said over the years they've come up with a cure for it, only to be killed themselves or die by accident somehow along the way in the last 40 years or so. But that's a different story altogether. Now, when I went and looked up Delta Hospice Society, I didn't realize that it was over 4 years ago that the BC government pulled your funding based upon the fact that you decided, or the hospice decided, that they weren't going to offer Maid. Now, why wouldn't you, and again, I'm just asking as devil's advocate here, I need to ask this question. Why wouldn't you offer that service? Is it because you didn't believe in it at the time?
First of all, let's get something. They didn't just take our funding. We didn't care about the funding. They took our assets. They took $8 million worth of our assets, shut us out, evicted us from the land. That's the issue. Their $1.5 million we could have fundraised for. We have a business. We create income on the side, right? That's not the issue. Mm-hmm. The government didn't want to give us their money. We don't need their money. What they took was the hospice that we built. They evicted us from a land. They canceled a lease, a 35-year land lease, where we had 25 years left to operate our hospice like we've been doing for the past 10 years. And the government said, you're not going to kill your patients. You're not going to get in lockstep with the policy that we've established. Then we'll take your stuff, we'll kick you out, and no one will ever hear from you again. That was what happened.
How long did that take for them to decide to do that? Was there a negotiation involved here? Did they keep coming to you threatening this?
They did. So they started with the funding. So, just to let your audience know what happened. So we fundraised $8 million. We got a land lease for 35 years adjacent to the Delta Hospital. And we custom built those buildings, a 12,000 square foot hospice, 10 beds, and a supportive care center next door, which was 7,500 square feet. This is the flagship in terms of hospice care all over Canada.
How many patients do you have in there at any given time?
We had 10 beds. So we had 10 hospice beds for 10 patients. And then whatever we were doing with the programming at the supportive care center, that could be hundreds in a year, right?
Right.
So we operated this very well. The government was very happy with us. And they, in exchange for, this big influx of resources to the public healthcare system, they provided to us the operating funding every year to provide those programs to the public. And then they weren't so happy once Maid came in. The BC NDP came into power. Maid was passed down from the federal government. And the BC NDP, they just, grabbed onto this thing with enthusiasm. And they mandated a policy whereby Maid euthanasia was going to have to be offered in every facility, in every bed in British Columbia. And that's when the trouble started for us.
Why were they so adamant about this, do you think?
Well, listen, this is one of those very interesting topics. They want to say, oh, it's patient rights, right? That Maid, which is really, Maid is an amendment to the Criminal Code of Canada.
It is.
Okay? Right? That doctors and nurse practitioners can kill their patients and it's considered non-culpable homicide. That's Maid. That gets pushed down to the provinces to sort of roll out this access. Maid was only ever supposed to be access to euthanasia for certain people. And so, you get the NDP government got a hold of this, and their policy was then to spread it everywhere. And so we
What
got
do you
in their
mean when you say
crosshairs.
spread it everywhere? Like you were talking about every single medical facility that exists in British Columbia?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay.
So that's not really how the healthcare system in Canada operates, right? You can't go just to any facility you want and get whatever you want, right? For example, you in Delta, you want to have your baby. Well, you can't have your baby in Delta because there's no maternity ward here. So you have to go to a different city to have your baby. That's how the healthcare system is. They have specialties, right? You go where the specialty is. Except when it comes to euthanasia, it's become the king of all procedures, and you have to be able to access it everywhere you go, anytime you want. That has become the policy of the provincial government. And that's what they said to us.
Okay. But again, I don't understand their adamance. Like, if there is a facility that would rather not offer this, I mean, everything else is still on the up and up. As you pointed out earlier, you had a great relationship with them until that bill passed in BC when the federal government handed Maid down to the provinces. So is there somebody within the government, like, is there anybody that you've spoken to who is absolutely convinced that this is the way to go? And if you don't go this way, you're not marching in lockstep with us, then we are going to do everything we can to tear you down and destroy you?
Yeah, well, it was a health ministry. The health ministry in British Columbia, right? It used to be the dictator over there.
Right. Yep.
He's now not the minister anymore. Now they've passed it on to some other lady who won't talk to me. So no, it's very much about you're going to get money from us, so you're going to do what we say. And when you say, well, it's okay, we don't need your money, they'll say, well, that's too bad because now you're on the land. And we say, well, we have a 35-year land lease. We've got 25 years left. That's okay. They went and they canceled it. They took it out of they just ripped up the lease.
No, they can't do that. That's illegal. Like, it's a signed contract, right?
Yes.
So when they did that, I understand they're the government.
Yes.
But
yes, it's as simple as that.
Wouldn't they have to go to court?
Well, they didn't. No,
okay.
They didn't, because look, in the lease that we had, so they actually created like a manufactured lease default. So in the lease documents of, they thick, it says in there that, you got to be working with the government. You got to be getting some funding, right? And then everything's great. So what they said was, we're going to cancel your funding. You do what we say, or we're taking your funding. And when they took the funding, then they had an opportunity to grow into the lease and cancel the lease, which is what they did. So they went into the lease and they said, well, look, you got this little piece of fine print here says you have to be taking money from us, and if you're not, we're going to cancel it. And they canceled it. And they evicted us and gave us 30 days to get off their land. And our buildings were just treated like, like some old shed or some kind of fence. It was fixture to the land.
Wait a minute.
You had to leave it.
Wait a minute. They said that you have to be taking funding or your lease gets canceled, but they pulled their funding because you guys decided that you didn't want to offer Maid to your clients.
That's right.
So they started it.
Well, of course. When we got into this agreement with the government, there was no such thing as Maid. It didn't exist, right? And, as we've always been very committed to palliative care. What is it? It's, we are committed to that authentic, historically accurate medical discipline. It's in our constitution of our organization. That's what we are. That's what we've always been. And so to tell us that now you're going to have to kill your patients, that's not palliative care. I don't care what they talk about in Canada. That's not palliative care. We have this revisionist idea that we're so compassionate, we just kill people. Oh, that's palliative care. No, I'm sorry, it isn't. And, we go by the internationally recognized and agreed upon definition of palliative care, the definition handed down by the World Health Organization that apparently a lot of these commies really like, WHO. Well, that's their definition. Okay. But that's not when they're not happy with it. So, that's what we stand on. That's who we are. And apparently was just unacceptable.
Can you, look, I want to get back to this, but you've been involved with this organization first as a patient and then up through the ranks, the executive director. of the Delta Hospice Society. And I know that you spend a great deal of your time with the people who run the thing. What is it like? Because you talked about this discipline, this 50-year discipline of palliative care. What is it like to be in that position, whether you're a nurse or a doctor, whatever your role is in that, to deal with people that you know are eventually going to die? It takes a special kind of person, I would imagine.
Well, I've had experiences on that side as a patient, my friends, right, that I walked through cancer with. Some of us didn't make it. My friends have died in that hospice that they took from us. My friends have now actually been mated in that hospice that they took from us. So, my connection is on the other side of the aisle. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, but I have gotten to know a lot about palliative care because it's very personal. This whole fight is very personal to me. And they explain it to me like, authentic palliative care can actually deal with probably 99% of pain. It's an expertise in symptom management if they're given the chance. So the pain management is a science and an art form. And everybody's different. Everybody's pain threshold, reasons for pain is different. And everybody needs to be treated like an individual. And so many wonderful things can happen when you're dealing with experts if they're given the opportunity. However, if they aren't, and you don't give people proper health care, you don't give people proper pain management, then yes, I promise you, they're going to beg to die. And so my concern now is that authentic palliative care is not being given to Canadians. And so, of course, they say, well, I'm in pain, and people in pain should be allowed to die.
I guess my question was about the personal journey that these people are on, when they're at end of life and they are seeing the same doctors and nurses every single day. You must form some kind of an attachment to these people and hear their personal journeys, their stories, maybe even their life stories, because you're sitting and spending time with them.
Yeah.
And that I'm fascinated by that.
And that's very important, right? That is the most important thing when we're all going to die at some point.
Nobody gets out alive.
So that ending of a lot of times reconciliation with our loved ones, walking that journey, saying the things that need to be said, doing the things that need to be done, that's important. That's sacred. And a lot of times now we find with Maid that is stolen, particularly for the families. We have seen a lot of trauma with families that didn't have the opportunity to say the things that needed to be said, to sit with their loved one, to prepare. And a lot of times when people are mated and the family they have the courtesy of being told that their loved one is gone, you see, and there's no therapy for those people who never get the chance. See, that's one of the tragedies of Maid. And there's no justice for the families who know that their loved one shouldn't have been mated, but somehow they got on that list and now they're gone.
Angelina, what is the process for Maid? I've heard so many different stories from so many different people. Is it something that you simply apply for? You have to go to your doctor to apply for Maid? How does it work? Not that I am encouraging anybody to do it, because
I'm not going to talk about that, to be honest with you, because listen.
No, where I was going with that was, like, is it too easy?
Yes, it is too easy. So if you end up in track 1, okay, and because of Bill C-7, so first they started with the Bill C-14, and that was to allow access to people who had a terminal illness, so a foreseeable death. Very shortly thereafter, we saw Bill C-7 come. And that was for basically everybody else, okay? So track 1 and track 2 now have been set up. Track 1 is the original people who have a foreseeable death. Now, those people can apply for Maid and get Maid in the same day. That's an immediate thing. So you come to a hospice, you have a bad day, your worst day becomes your last day, right? You don't get the opportunity to just work the system and start to feel better. Then there's the track 2, which is the 90-day wait. And that's basically for everybody else who have an intolerable situation. Okay, what does that mean? Oh, well, poverty is pretty intolerable. Living under a bridge, disability could be considered intolerable. Chronic illness could be considered intolerable, but you're not dying, right? You don't have that foreseeable death, if you will.
You could go on for 50 years.
Right, just needing care, basically needing appropriate health care, and even palliative care. Palliative care can do a lot for the people in that particular group to make their lives much better. So it depends. And I'll tell you something quite frankly here, since we're being honest. All you really need is a very sympathetic Maid assessor and Maid provider to track 1 you when you really should have been in a track 2 situation.
So these Maid assessors, I mean, their job is to approve people for death. So I'm thinking that they're pretty much all sympathetic in that regard.
We have seen that. We have seen, look, I get all the horrible stories, right? Because I hear all the death porn, right? And I know how it is like there on the front line. So, we've seen assessors just have a Zoom meeting for 5 minutes and rubber stamp it. The end. So, that is problematic right there. That people are coming with a desperation for whatever reason, and they're getting fast-tracked to death when they needed support.
90 days does not sound like a long enough time for somebody to assess their life.
90 days you can't even get a psychiatrist or a sociologist or a counselor in 90 days.
People are waiting for hip surgery for 2 years in this country, for goodness sakes. In 3 months, they can be approved to die and die right then and there. How do they do this? Like, what's the process?
Well, okay, now, so if you want the truth about what the process is, all right. So there's this narrative. I'll just call it propaganda.
Sure.
That Maid is beautiful and it's peaceful. And in fact, they have commercials, they have all kinds of advertising about it's a beautiful thing, running through the forest. It's beautiful. We're going to have Maid. Listen, we know because of a doctor called Dr. Joel Zivot, who gave testimony to the Senate when they were doing the hearings for Bill C-7. And he said, straight out, Maid is not what your people think it's going to be. In fact, it could actually be very painful. It could be akin to waterboarding. You need to tell people, if you want informed consent, you need to tell people the truth. Dr. Joel Zivot's testimony is public. We have it on our website. You can look at what he said. The Maid cocktail is basically, it's 3 poisons, okay? Now, there's no drug that has been developed to kill people. So they're using off-label. They're using drugs that, for example, one of the drugs is propofol. In a clinical setting, you use propofol to put people under, it's like an anesthesia, put people under for surgery, okay?
Yeah.
Now, in Maid, they use 10 times the clinical dose. So it becomes a poison. And I might add that when you put propofol, when you're pushing it to the vein, you have to put lidocaine because it burns going into the vein, right? Dr. Joel Zivot has told us when you use the kind of quantities of propofol in Maid, it's likely scorching and burning the lungs.
And people are feeling that. They're feeling that.
Well, another thing that they use, one of the other in the cocktail is a paralytic. Rocurium, or something to that effect it's called, right? Rocurium is a paralytic.
Okay.
Oh, so your person's lying there. Doesn't it look peaceful because they're paralyzed, right? So you couldn't scream. You couldn't tell anybody what the hell's going on inside of you because everybody's, at these rituals, at these Maid rituals, and they've sworn up and down to me, it's beautiful, Angelina. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know exactly. It's beautiful and peaceful because the person's paralyzed. We don't even put paralytics when we're euthanizing a dog.
So these are the two, you mentioned there was a cocktail of three.
Midazolam, propofol, rocaccurium. That's your Maid kit. That's what they bring.
And
right?
who executes, pardon my wording, but that's the
A doctor or a nurse practitioner.
Any doctor?
Well, anybody will do it.
You see, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, you and I were talking off air before the show began tonight about a story that I had seen maybe a year and a half ago about these two female doctors who were bragging about how many people they had killed under the Maid program in Canada. Like they were giddy about it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you're a medical health professional. You went to school for years as maybe a nurse practitioner, nurse, doctor, whatever, to heal people, to make people better. And here you are killing them. And you seem happy about it. It's like a license to kill.
Yes, exactly. In fact, they're so happy. Some of these people have done hundreds. Like any other, we think this is a mass murder. They've done hundreds of non-culpable homicides called Maid. One in particular, both of those you're, I think, referring to out here on the West Coast, right?
I can't remember exactly.
One in particular, had a abortion clinic by day, and then, would run out and do euthanasia and sneak into old folks' homes that did not allow Maid and made somebody there, who'd pick people up at the airport, bring them back to her office in downtown Vancouver, and made them after hours. Like there was one injunction and we only know about this because of the whistleblowers, right? She went to the airport. She brought somebody from Alberta. She was going to bring them back to her office on West Broadway in Vancouver at 8:00 on a Sunday night and euthanize them.
Wait a minute. If you euthanize somebody in your office, that you're going to have to dispose of the body in some way, right? And
Yeah.
if they go into a place that doesn't allow it, would they not then be culpable?
Well, she's allowed to do it there, I suppose. I don't really know. I mean, I don't even know if this person was eligible. It said that this person was not eligible for Maid, which is how they got the injunction. No, you call the coroner. They come with a body bag and they bring it out. Who would know? It's 10:00 on a Sunday night. The whole place is closed down. Wow. Off they go, right? That's another one notch on their belt. Yeah,
we talked about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I would say that there have been complaints to the College of Physicians and Surgeons about some of these people. None of them have ever been disciplined. None of them have ever lost their license, right?
But try prescribing ivermectin, and boy, that's a whole other matter. We talked about this. We haven't got the updated numbers, as you pointed out earlier, Angelina. By the way, our guest tonight, Angelina Ireland. She is the executive director of Delta Hospice Society in British Columbia. We only have until the end of 2023. They say from 2016, when Maid became a thing in Canada, until the end of 2023, 60,301 Maid provisions have been executed in our country. And you think that's low?
Oh, yeah. No, there's no way. There's no way. I always joke, but I'm not really joking when I say I think they forgot a zero. The number, I'm sure you know people who've been mated. Everybody probably who's listening to this knows people who've been mated. I talk about this across Canada. I talk to people. I have taught across Canada. Everybody practically puts their hand up when I ask them, do you know somebody who's been mated? And they're going to tell us it's only 60,000. They must really think we're stupid.
Well, even if it's only 60,000, that's still a city the size of Lethbridge, Alberta. I mean, that's still a lot of people. If it's more than that, right, even though we haven't got official statistics to back that up, then that's reprehensible.
You'll never, because, listen, they're not even putting Maid as the cause of death on the death certificate. They're putting whatever the reason was that they wanted Maid. Cancer, heart, coronary, embolism, whatever. No, that is practice. That is common practice. So you can't even go. Statistics Canada doesn't even have Maid on the causes of death in Canada. It's not there, although it's like fourth or fifth cause of death according to the official numbers. Stats Canada is not even looking at that. There's a huge cover-up where this is concerned. And so, look, we know that's what I'm saying. It's not, there's no way it's 60,000.
This is incredible. This is amazing. Let's get back to Delta Hospice Society. You were telling the story about how they took the land from you. They took essentially your buildings from you. What have you been doing since then?
So they wiped out $8 million of our assets, right? Because that's just stone cold communism. Because that's what happens when you don't get into lockstep with the policy. They took that, but they weren't able to take our organization, right? As much as they wanted. So we have our organization, we have our voice. I'm able to come and speak to you tonight and everybody who listen to me. We have another property. On that property, we have a store, a thrift store. So they weren't able to take that from us. So we don't have bricks and mortar in the moment. We have an organization. They took our stuff, but they didn't take our soul.
When did they take your stuff, Angelina?
In 2021.
So it's been 4 years.
Yes. And since then, we've had every euthanasia activist in the country, every do-gooder, liberal, libtard in the country coming after us to try to destroy and take away from us our voice. And they haven't been able to. They haven't been successful. We have been able to fight them. They've come after me personally. You know, I'm just like, I got a bunch of like medals of honor.
I find it amazing, you know, and this is something I had a conversation with, I think somebody in Newfoundland a while back who, you know, the left-wing corporate media, as I call them on this show, would go to as a go-to person to talk about community activism or whatever it was. And then when COVID came along and this person that I'm referring to went against the narrative, went against the government, went against the media, she was never called again for anything, right? So you go from Good Samaritan, you know, glowing citizen to next to nobody for one thing. The media turns their back and will even vilify you. Have you been vilified in the corporate media in BC?
Oh my goodness. Oh, you want to have another show? But no, honestly,
we got time. I want to hear it.
They even egged my house. They banged on my door because they couldn't get us. They couldn't get us. They'll get me. They could get me. They could take me down. They think that's it, right? Well, there's lots of people who just take my place if I go.
And who's doing this? Antifa?
I don't know.
Just some radicals?
I don't know. Because, so I have to have security cameras on my property. The Delta police had to get involved with security cameras on my property to find the person. So apparently they did. They were able to track down the person or persons who've been terrorizing me and my family. And I wanted to get the police report because I think that this is actionable, certainly in the civil case. So I got the police report and the whole thing was redacted. Every line blacked out. So I don't know. Anyways, it stopped. So I'm just happy for small mercies. But yes, you know, there is no end to, if you won't get into lockstep, they'll find ways to try to silence you or stop you. But, you know, we speak the truth. And so we have many, many smart people in our country who have been able to find our story on independent media. Good people like you who will have me on to talk about it. And so, you know, little by little, sort of the truth about the state euthanasia program called Maid is getting out. But people know something's not quite right about it.
You know, it's interesting that you say that because, you know, often I will lament, and every viewer watching this right now knows because they lament the same way. How come more people are not understanding exactly what's going on around us right now? Like they think that Maid is only for people who are in incredible pain with absolutely zero chance of recovering. Only then will they allow Maid. And that's absolutely untrue. They've expanded the program many times since 2016, and they plan to expand again. Can you talk about that, please?
Yes, they are. See, I don't know what is something about bloodlust They're never satisfied. They're never, satiated with the ability to kill. So now they're going after the children. They're going after the mentally ill. And they're going after every charter right we have in terms of, religious freedom, religious liberty. One of the biggest organizations in Canada, the national lobby groups, is Dying with Dignity Canada. Right? I'm sure everybody's heard of it. Dying with Dignity Canada. It's so beautiful. They talk about being a human rights organization. Who doesn't like human rights? Except, really, being killed by the state is somehow human rights. So, Dying with Dignity Canada has very deep pockets, lots and lots of money. In 2024 alone, they spent almost $1.5 million on salaries. There are people all day, every day, thinking about how they can get the message out to kill yourself. They spent over $800,000 on just advertising, right? It's beautiful, it's peaceful, it's human rights, we're so compassionate. Right. So in their crosshairs now, they have legal cases to go after in the courts because the judiciary is been very pro-Maid. They're going after the mentally ill. They've got a case in Ontario. They're going to make the courts push that you can be killed for mental illness alone. So that's coming into effect. The sunset clause on that is coming into effect 2027. Where you can be killed by the state for the sole reason that you just have a mental illness.
And what defines mental illness? I mean, it used to be that gender dysphoria was a mental illness, but now it's only a condition. Like they changed that in the DSM-4, I think it was. So if you say I'm depressed, would that count?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people, they're bipolar, they have deep depression. That would qualify. That's a mental illness. Unfortunately, many of these people are being mated anyways because they're not putting that down as the reason. They likely have some comorbidity, maybe they're diabetic or maybe they've got some other thing that would qualify them for Maid, and that's what's being used. But, come 2027, or if Dying with Dignity can get their court case won before that, all you need to do is apply on the basis of mental illness.
So you said they're going after kids. Now, we've heard that in many different contexts, in many different subjects over the years. We've got an activist here in Manitoba. Her name is Raylan Fox, and she talks a lot about the pornography that's available in public schools and public libraries. But are you suggesting that children will have the ability to go to a doctor and say they want Maid, like 12-year-olds?
Yes. Because, and I say that yes emphatically, because they're not called children, because they have to, take the language. They're called mature minors.
So how do you distinguish between a mature minor and a child?
Well, that's up to the doctor. So the doctor is going to determine if this child has agency, likely is precocious. They can talk to the child, and that's going to be the determinant whether or not they can qualify. Oh, you're 12, but you're pretty with it. So yes. So listen, the insidious nature of this is that, and we have already had a joint commission between the House of Commons and the Senate that has already put through their recommendations in February of 2023. And they've got like 5 recommendations, kill the children, give Health Canada money to talk about killing the children. The next one was, now the children, it's not up to the parents, right? The parents have nothing to do with it. It's just between the child and the doctor to determine. We're just going to kill the very sick children first, right? And we're going to get all of this done within 5 years. So that was 2023. And that's the Joint Commission on Maid. You can go look it up. It's all public. And the push is to kill the children. Now, Health Canada has brought out a book called, I have a picture of it. It's the activity book, the Maid activity book for children.
Wait a minute. What is this, like a coloring book or something? Is this like something that kids can, look, there's a little pop-up deathbed?
It's very, children friendly in its look. It's called Activity Book for Children, funded by Health Canada. It's like 23 pages. It has, very useful tips for children, like making plans for Maid. And it's like they write it like a child's book. Step by step is one of the other in there. And euthanasia, so they call the euthanasia poison, they call it medicine. So they tell the children, this is medicine and it doesn't hurt. Right? I just told you that Dr. Joel Zivot, a 25-year anesthesiologist, is telling us it bloody well does hurt.
Yeah, but you can't react to it because you're paralyzed.
So they're telling this to the children. They're feeding this nonsense to the children to desensitize them, not only when they cart grandma off to be euthanized, but likely for them to think, well, that's a healthcare option.
Angelina, is this being pushed in schools that you know of?
Look, what isn't being pushed in schools that isn't degenerate?
Yeah, I understand.
But, I don't know exactly who's getting a hold of these little Maid activity books, but they've been out for a while. I have a copy of one, and it is something that is distressing beyond just demonic, that the little ones now are up, and the fact that that parental rights have been destroyed in Canada, and that parents will not be able to protect their own children if the little one gets it into their head that they are sick, very sick, and that they need Maid. So look, they're going to start with the very sick children, the very sick babies, as one Dying with Dignity organization in Quebec is recommending. Start with the babies. We have a lot of people now buzzing. It's all about the experts. Canada is run by a tyranny of experts, the doctors, the lawyers, the professors, and they're all coming on board that, mature minors, innocuous word, doesn't make you scared. Mature minors should be able to be eligible, and they're going to change the criminal code again to allow for mature minors, which could be as young as 12, can access euthanasia. And so some of the chatter about this by the experts is that they're going to start with kind of like they do with adults, with the very sick children, because those are, I quote, the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
The low-hanging fruit are the very sick children, and they'll just increase it from there. In fact, one of these brainiacs, who's apparently a neurosurgeon professor out east, is saying that, well, actually, I don't think it was him because there was all redacted, but they're getting on and talking about how they should, think about euthanizing the autistic kids, because the autistic kids are such a burden. Like when you get into the
wait a minute. They're talking about euthanizing autistic kids, but there's no way that these autistic kids could ever be declared mature minors because they've got autism. I guess it depends on the degree of it. They would never be able to come up with that themselves. So then it would be the parents who have to say, you know what, I can't deal with this autistic kid anymore. Can you kill him for me?
It's not funny. In fact, I'm kind of giggling because I'm so sick.
No, I
I'm
get
either
it.
going to laugh or cry here.
Yeah. I totally understand.
Right. So yes, we're where we get into the weeds of what the experts think, what the elites think in this country. You would be very shocked, or maybe you wouldn't, but people would be very surprised of the plans that they have for us.
No, we're fully aware of all of that. The entire audience is every day that I get information. I provide information every single day as to what their plans for us are, believe me. But in this case, I know how they've disguised this program as compassionate care, as you point out. Dignity in dying, all of that nonsense. But you've called this the Canadian cull.
Yes. Internationally, I have said that. Because, listen, they're going after the vulnerable. This is my opinion. This is all just my opinion, okay? So I don't need to get any more hate mail. This is my opinion. They're going after the vulnerable. The old, the sick, the disabled, the poor, the homeless, the drug addicts, Everybody's qualified for Maid, and doctors are bringing it to these people as a healthcare option. That's supposed to be against the law, but apparently it's fine, right? Because it's supposed to be, the whole Maid setup was that it was supposed to come from from the person, from the patient. It was going to be their wish. No. The doctors are bringing it from people from CAMAP. CAMAP is a big national organization. That's the Canadian Assessors and Providers, who have received over $6 million from the federal government to produce publications to tell doctors and the medical profession in Canada that it's their obligation to bring up Maid as a healthcare option. So we have a very vulnerable population in this country that is not safe. So when you're killing the most vulnerable, it is nothing but a cull to get rid of them. You might call it eugenics, if you will. I just call it a cull, because the government, the public healthcare system is broke and broken. And quite frankly, the funding model is wrong, it's stupid. And so they can't afford these people. We have a whole boomer generation, which has paid to create public health care, has paid their whole lives, and now they actually need it. Well, they can't afford that. We can't afford to take care of them. Oh, this Maid, this is a panacea, right? So listen, it's very, I consider it to be very predatory. This Maid regime is very predatory. It's made up of a consortium that I call Empire Maid, right? Of the national lobby groups, the not-for-profits, the government bureaucracies, ministries, the judiciary. It is the judiciary that brought us Maid in the first place.
I'll tell you this, that every single institution that you just mentioned, every single profession that you just mentioned, they're all culpable. I totally understand it, and they should all be held responsible. But the people who actually execute, again, pardon my wording, these crimes, I just don't understand how they can do this, how they can look in the mirror, how they can convince themselves. Again, I can see if somebody is end of life with no chance of recovery and in incredible pain, and you say that 99% of those people can be helped with pain management. But if somebody is in that 1%, I might say, you want to know what? Let's preserve this person's dignity and let's let them go. And only under those very, very narrow circumstances would I ever agree to anything like this personally. But the people who were doing this in the future to children, to vulnerable, mentally ill people right now, people who might be poor, as you pointed out, people living in the streets, people addicted to drugs, whatever their situation, somebody who is qualified for Maid, and then a doctor or a nurse practitioner will go to that person and inject them with these 3 drugs and kill them. How can that person, of all the evil that's going on here, Angelina, these people to me are the worst. They're the ones who are actually doing it. They're the murderers. How can they convince themselves?
I will say one more thing about it, and I will say that had the medical profession not gotten behind Maid, right, it never would have gotten to this point. And I think that's a very true statement, and I stand behind that.
How much are they getting for this? Do you know if there's any bonuses, like how much extra they're getting paid?
Well, depending on the province, but you can get anywhere from $900 to $1,500. I'll call it an execution.
Yeah.
And some of the things we have seen is kill day. Some of these places where like a doctor's coming on Tuesday, so you line them all up or whatever the day is, right? Everybody gets in line and they come out, and they'll have to come out once, and they just do the whole whack of them. This is there are people now in this country that just do that for a living. It has become a practice. When you grab the moral high ground, when you're allowed, these virtue signalers are allowed to hold hostage the moral high ground around this, right? It's human rights, it's dignity, it's compassion. You can see how one might consider that they're doing a public service.
I don't.
No, of course, no, nor do I. That's why I'm sitting here in this position that I am, right?
Yeah.
But we have seen this before in history. This is not new. We have seen the T4 program in World War II, where they just brought everybody to the, in Hadamar, and they euthanized them, and they brought the disabled and the sick kids and the sick people, and they gassed them, or they euthanized them in some other way. This is not new. We must look to history, and we must recognize
they're erasing history, Angelina. They're doing it one step at a time, so we don't remember. I'm sorry. Continue, please. I interrupted you.
So how do they do it? Well, it's for the most part put under palliative care codes. When it's being billed back, they're putting the billing through palliative care, right? So how do they do it? I don't know. How do they?
So the latest thing with Delta Hospice Society is that you're looking for, let's call it refugee status in Alberta. How about that? What is the plan there?
Yeah. So not only were they not able to destroy us at the Delta Hospice Society, but we've actually flourished over the last 4 years, and we've been able to raise money, and we now have hundreds of thousands of dollars to open another hospice, and we will call this a sanctuary for the dying, and we want to open it in British Columbia, and so I tried to speak with the Ministry of Health and Ravi Kahlon, the Minister of whatever, this week, because he's an MLA in Delta, but the BC NDP apparently don't want to talk to us. So they've stonewalled us, they've ignored us, apparently we're just dead to them. So we can't even get the ball rolling. And we will not invest another, $1 million in the healthcare system for the BC NDP to take it from us. So, so what I did is I went to Alberta, and I said, would we be welcome to come to Alberta and to open hospice, one that will be, authentically palliative care, to preserve what I consider to be a national treasure of the palliative care medical discipline that Canada has a lot to do with. We had Dr. Balfour Mount. He's the father of palliative care from McGill University. He's ours, right? We need to preserve what he did. And my answer back, so, they got back to me with in no time, and they said, yes, yeah, you can come here and you can open, we believe in a continuum of choices at end of life. And that's what it would be, right? It's if you choose to come to our sanctuary, we will protect you. We will give you palliative care. You can live well until your natural end. And they said, yeah, that's fine. So I've talked to the Justice Ministry there. I've talked to the Health Ministry there. And look, we're not even asking them for any money.
Watch out for AHS. Money. Watch out for the Alberta Health Services. Yeah. I'm sure you've heard some stories about them. Just watch out for the. You know what you got to do? You got to get Danielle Smith to somehow publicly welcome Delta Hospice Society to Alberta. And so they will have a harder time trying to somehow undermine you.
Yeah,
I know, but I realize it's the only opportunity you may have in this country, because it seems every other province is effed, right? With this far left authoritarianism that's happening. I mean, Manitoba's lost. Saskatchewan seems okay, but who knows? They've still got some scandalous stuff going on with their bureaucracy. Forget about Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes is all red. So I guess if you're going to be...
This is our last stand, right? This is going to be our last stand, our last chance to bring some sanctuary to our people. We always hear from many, many people across Canada. We're a national organization now. We started with 200 members, and now at our highest, we're at 12,000 across Canada. People want the kind of services we want to provide. There's a constituency that would choose us. We want to give them that option.
All of the rational-minded people, right? Yeah. Who are by far, in my opinion, the majority. And yet, for some reason, these radical wackadoos are taking over every institution and bureaucracy in our country, both federally and provincially, and we're letting them. And it needs to end at some point. So are you moving to Alberta? I mean, they said, yeah, come on over.
Yeah.
From what I got.
We're actively looking for property.
Okay.
I have been there. You know, we've learned some lessons the hard way. We would never again, anything we build would have to be on private property. We would never again get into any kind of a lease situation, no matter how good it sounded. So it has to be, so we're looking for private land in Alberta to build a hospice or renovate, depending what kind of building we'll be able to find. So, you know, we're actively doing that right now. I've been out in a particular area. I've been looking around. I have another area. I've been speaking to people. So, you know, this is like lots of moving parts.
Are you talking like any particular part of Alberta, or do you have a favorite area that you want to go to?
You know, we want a constituency that wants us. That's very important. You know, we're not going to go move into a woke neighborhood, right? Because we'll get egged and we need to be in an area that wants us. So it has to be a mutually agreeable kind of, you know, and there's many places like that in Alberta, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
We're not moving downtown Edmonton.
No.
But that's only there. But there are many small towns. I think we would go rural. I'm looking at a rural property. It would be small town Alberta that wants us. And so I always like, you know, we have a toll-free number. Call us. Let us know if there's something in your town. 1-800-232.
Hang on, let me write this down. 1-800-232.
1589.
1-800-232. What? Can you say that again, please?
Yeah. 1-800.
Yep.
232. 1589.
Okay.
Call us. We have a website, deltahospicesociety.org. Very easy.
Mm-hmm.
You can email us. You can call us. We're on the hunt for a place. And we're going to do this because we believe that if we can get the first sanctuary made in this country, we're going to have a model and we can help everybody in this country make their own.
Don't say made. I know that's not how you meant it.
We can help create
right
sanctuaries everywhere in this country. And they will be places put together by just normal people. Like, we don't need the government to tell us how or give us money to do it. We can actually do this like we used to, right? Before we abdicated all of our power to the state so they can turn around and use our money against us and now euthanize us.
It's incredible.
So we can do this, and we're going to show you how to do this. And it is one of the most important projects called nation building that we can be involved in, because you know, this is going to save people's lives. It's going to, you know, Section 7 of the charter, security of the person. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they're whittling away every charter right we have. Mm-hmm. But we're going to stand on that one. And we're going to show other people how to do it. You got a little bit of land. You've got some moxie, right? You're not afraid of the woke. We're going to show you how you can do this. And you can help protect your family and your loved ones. And, you know, we have a program right now. We call it the Do Not Euthanize Defense Kit. So the DNE Defense Kit. And we literally put legal paperwork in people's hands that they can give to their doctors and they can give to the hospital that says, don't talk to me about Maid. It's a declaration. Don't talk to me about Maid. I want health care, not Maid. We put cards in people's hands, customized cards, laminated wallet-sized cards that has your name on it. And it says, I require health care, not Maid. And in fact, those cards have actually spoken for people's lives, right? Wow. Particularly the elderly, when they go into the hospital and they don't have energy, or they don't have, and the doctors come down around with the paperwork. How about we just have Maid? You can go off to eternity. That's the spiel. and they've got witnesses that they bring with them. So they come to the little old man, who's one of our clients. They came to him at the Kingston Hospital emergency ward. I'll call him Mr. B. They came to him with a doctor and 2 witnesses, trying to get him to sign the Maid paperwork so they can take him off to the Maid slaughter room, and they don't have to give him a bed because he had pneumonia. He could hardly speak, but he had our card, and he showed the card, and they backed off, right?
Wow.
They did. So, we've had really good success with this thing.
Wow.
So it's free. Free. We have sent thousands of these across Canada.
This is the Delta on the website. You can get that?
Yeah, it's called the Do Not Euthanize Defense Kit. If you go to our landing page, you can go right there. It's called the DNE Defense Kit. And yeah, there you go. Right? Sign up. It's free. It's free for your life.
You know what you should do? I mean, I'm sorry to be vulgar, and I don't usually do this on the show, but I mean, just give them a card just saying, F off with your maid already. Right? Like, you ghoul, get away from me with your death kit. I'm sorry. This is outrageous. Angelina, what you have done is, not only take care of so many people and their families over the years, but now you are standing up for the right of Canadians to live.
2 thumbs up.
I appreciate everything that you've done, and I want to thank you for spending some time with us tonight. Delta Hospice Society.org. And the phone number, again, I wrote it down just so I wouldn't forget. 1-800, if you have some rural land in Alberta, you want to talk to Angelina about maybe doing a deal. 1-800-232-1589. Give her a call. Thank you, Angelina. We hope to have you again on the show. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Angelina, Ireland. Wow. That was a fantastic conversation. And I hope you guys like and share tonight's show. Get it out to as many people as you possibly can. I know I haven't talked a lot about Maid in the past little while. Different tonight. It's just another facet of the 2030 agenda. That's it for the show tonight, you guys. In the extension, we will continue with the show, and we've also got some fascinating. This is fascinating. This Swiss doctor. Let me bring this up on the screen here. This Swiss scientist claims there is portal underneath CERN from where beings come in and out. Now, I realize that this has been translated from a different language. So it's not some crazy, this is just a bad translation. But we have some video of Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger, who is going to talk about this from her involvement in CERN on the extension tonight for all access pass holders at shadowdavis.com. If you are not a pass holder, I strongly urge you to become one. You get all the extra content. You have access to the Shadow store coming very, very soon. And most importantly, at least as far as I'm concerned, you are supporting this show and helping it stay on the air. If you want to make a donation because you don't want to go ahead and join up, that's okay too. You can send e-transfers to shadowdavis@gmail.com. Again, S-A, like it's spelled at the bottom of the screen there. SHADOEDAVIS, all one word, at gmail.com. You can go ahead and send e-transfers to help keep this show on the air. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight, guys. I love you all. I appreciate you all. I will talk to you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central. The extension. Are there portals to different dimensions underneath CERN? The extension coming up in a couple of minutes on the website, shadowdavis.com. We'll see you there.